Cassia is along the same lines as Butcher in that she's intended to be a durable assassin while she's playing her game plan. She is ranged though and can take fewer risks to take down targets if she can reliably land skill shots. She's also explicitly a specialist assassin with a penchant for handily 1v1ing basic attackers. She shares weaknesses with most assassins though, and maybe even gets exploited worse than most if properly countered. Her trait is an armor bonus as long as she doesn't stand still for more than 3/4 of a second. It also doesn't stack with any other armor sources, so she can't be ridiculously tanky. This is where most of her durability comes from, and you might be able to figure out that she is just as squishy as every other assassin when she's not moving, whether by her choice or by crowd control. This typically would make her a niche pick alone, but she goes a little further into a specific, minuscule optimal situation with a later ability. Her trait has a ton of talents for a passive, but the strongest I'll note are Plate of the Whale, which is a lot of health regen that is always active, War Traveler, which is an instant mount on top of the constant movement speed increase, and Titan's Revenge, which allows her to bypass armor if she went with a basic attack build. Cassia's Q is a straight skill shot that transforms into 2 perpendicular bolts upon contact with the first enemy unit hit. It has 2 charges and its range is honestly not that bad, working as a good poking tool before she decides to close the gap. She can honestly poke really well with it, and has the option to build for this ability exclusively if the user is confident in their ability to land skill shots at range. Thunderstroke is the primary talent for the Q build in that it gives a permanent plus 1.5 damage every time she lands a Q with any part of the ability. Power Strike and Static Electricity are both strong, but you have to choose which secondary spell you value more, the former giving free Ws, and the latter enhancing her E. Cassia's W is a medium AoE ranged blind for 2 seconds, with a passive that increases her damage against blinded enemies. This is where her niche mostly comes out, in that she can disable multiple heroes with a blind simultaneously while going in on them. She synergizes with other heroes that can apply blinds since it's not specifically her own abilities that proc the passive damage, and Seraph's Hymn, one of the only talents for the ability, doubles her bonus damage against blinded opponents, and increases the uptime of the ability for maximum disable possibilities. Cassia's E is a technically melee but still alright AoE damage payload ability. It dashes to a target enemy unit and starts a channel of a cone in front of her that deals rapid damage. It also doesn't force her to lose her trait while channeling, but she is standing still and vulnerable to crowd control the entire time. It's got a little bit of guaranteed damage, but it's not that hard to avoid if targeted by Cassia. The talents are generally the strongest here, but I think it's because this ability is the highest risk and highest reward, so it needs a little incentive. Impale makes the ability pretty good and more of a team fight ability with a bigger AoE with some execute damage tacked on. Grounding Rod helps keeps enemies inside the zone while active, but War Matron just makes this ability downright frustrating since it turns her most vulnerable period into a time where you just have to wait her out. Cassia's first ult is a ball that bounces in between enemy heroes with the option to bounce to herself if there are no other targets nearby to bounce to. It does an okay amount of damage every time it makes contact with an enemy, and the range is pretty alright. It works pretty effectively for picking off isolated targets with the dash from E, even if every other bounce isn't doing damage to the target. It works just as well in team fights, if not more so due to every bounce dealing damage to an opponent when they position together. The Storm talent causes it to bounce indefinitely and reduces the cooldown for bouncing, which definitely causes it to skyrocket in power, though as of right now, its damage is not so great that it's ridiculous, and opponents will never, ever be able to get away from each other. Cassia's second ult is a range displacement ability akin to a hook, though not especially long range. Upon activation, a Valkyrie spawns a certain distance from Cassia and charges toward her, pulling the first hero hit, stunning them, and knocking other heroes in the path back. Though there is a slight delay after the spawn, so it's not completely unreactable to those at max distance. It does certainly help with the picking identity of the character and can definitely help at all times if the target grabbed is one needed to be focused. The Storm talent adds all sorts of crowd control and a silence and a root to all heroes in the area, and a blind to the target hit, which lasts even after the disruption. To wrap up, she's fine and kind of alright at picking off isolated targets with a moderate potential to displace targets to where she wants them to be, or just be stronger at fighting with her team, and with her slightly above average durability, she can take a few more risks after she gets tired of basic attacking and throwing Qs. Her basic attack build is not so bad, and it's very risk averse compared to playing around E, so she can honestly play pretty adaptive as is, which is commendable for an assassin in this game.